Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button, together with a Ko-Fi link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to, first and foremost, new Patreon Chris Wooters, Amish Earther, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, the name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMels24, Unimento, M Iron 26, Endless Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKeon and Retro Bill, Level Plain Poem, Cannabear, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Hamid, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Why is that one that keeps catching me out every single time? It's because it's all one word. I think it's Level Earth Poems. You've changed your name. Level Plain Poem. I'll have to try and get that right next time. Anyway, with that, I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
He's like, what does he mean? There's no perspective in the globe paradigm. Like, he's genuinely confused. So that's why you got
you would need a horizontal line in order to see how much the curvature is deviating from.
Yeah, what do you mean there's no perspective in the globe paradigm? What does he mean by that? Good morning, Nathan.
Morning.
Nathan.
Take it you're talking about Planet Peterson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
We have to remember that people arrive at the Feast of Nonsense from a globe perspective as well. I didn't want to use the word perspective, but from a globe avenue. You know what I mean? If you, I don't know if you've ever tried to do this little exercise where you go through the process of doing the YouTube searches as though you're trying to affirm the globe, as opposed to look for flat Earth information. What you'll get is obviously anti-flat Earth information. But what's it doing? Well, it's retraining you in the Feast of Nonsense with all the anti-flat Earth globe arguments. What is that exactly? Well, the arguments that the people who oppose us put to us, but actually go against the original claim of a globe. Well, you've got to learn all that stuff. Well, Planet Peterson's an example of someone who hasn't yet gone through the Feast of Nonsense, has a cursory understanding of heliocentrism, and therefore thinks, oh, well, I know better than all these flat earthers with my very limited knowledge. He's very quickly found that there's people here that have got an exemplary understanding of both heliocentrism and the flat earth arguments. He has neither.
That's correct. Hey, Nathan, the reason why I asked you about that Mandela effect the other day was that Feast of Nonsense stuff. I'm really starting to believe that that's been deliberately put there, like you say, because it really caused a division inside of some close-knit people. Like now, Paula, Michael, Paul, JP, they're all like, they ended their channel over Mandela effect. It's ridiculous what's going on with this Feast of Nonsense. It's starting to really annoy me.
We used to have the same thing regarding the Earth curvature. Yeah, Mandela effect, curvature disappeared.
Yeah, I know you feel, Neil. I mean, I felt like that when I first got here.
It's bad news, man.
I felt like that many, many years ago when I first got here and started looking through the subject. Not anymore. You know, you want your weird fantasies, fine. And we've all come here along a conspiratorial path for the most part as well. So, you know, just the way, that's the nature of this particular beast. We've had the information dripped out to us in a particular way.
What do you mean they ended their channels?
There was a whole breakup over this Mandela because Paula was addressing it, and saying, if you think Satan can actually go change God's word, then why would we have a Bible study? How would you be able to continue to study the Bible if you believe that it can be changed? And that's the question that, she proposed to me. And that, look, whatever's going on, it's not what they're thinking it is. And you're
Well,
sitting in the feast of nonsense, digesting this stuff from people that have channels about it. And yeah, it caused a big division. Now I'm in
right,
the
but you
middle of
said
it.
it ended.
I'm trying to make the peace.
You said it ended their channels, or they ended their channels. What do you mean by that?
Well, they were doing a channel together. Now they no longer are.
What channel is that?
I think it was the one you were talking about, Nathan. His word is truth.
Yeah. So what's the dealio
Yeah.
with that? You're saying one of them likes Mandela and one of them doesn't?
Yeah, Michael, I'm close to Michael. Like, I don't know how much more I can explain to him. He's telling me, listen, yeah, I don't care. I don't want to fall out with you, but it's real. I even showed my mother, and she sees it. It's like, what are you seeing? You're not seeing anything.
Like I say, I had my battles with Jesse Spots 10 years ago over this nonsense. And, the only way you can only lead by example, Neil. You can only do what you do and hope that others will follow in your footsteps if you're doing good things. Well, if you lay off the Mandela and you lay off the mud floods and you lay off the conspiratorial nonsense that's out there, then that's what I've chosen to do. Not cover those things. I investigated them, to my satisfaction, debunked them, and then moved on with my life. Now I'm trying to reprogram a whole bunch of conspiratard idiots into saying, no, your best foot forward is going to be to just state the obvious, state how Earth's measured. If that's what you're trying to achieve here, if you're going to call yourself a flat earther, that should be your first priority. Not talking about Mandela effect, but that's your bag, not mine. So that's what I'm going to do, Neil. And I can only do that. I can only do what I do and hope that others like it and follow suit if they see it as effective.
Well, this all happened because on one of your shows, one of your re-ups, I was in a chat and Paula said, yeah, they ganged up on me about Mandela. I was just trying to tell them, and I thought it was tongue in cheek. So I was like, yeah, well, they listened to that Brian Stavely guy. And then I got a message from Michael saying Paul is, I don't want to say it because he's going to listen to this and then I'm going to fall out with him. He didn't have kind things to say. Now, Paul is not a liar. Paula is not deceitful. And Paula is not just looking to cause let's say, a rift. She's just breaking it down and you're not seeing it. Now, what they're saying back to me is there's new information now. You're not looking into it. You just have not looked into it enough. And you're just hand waving everything they say.
Sound familiar?
I don't want to look into it at all. Yes, it sounds very familiar.
Yeah, well, you can chase your tail down all these rabbit holes if you choose to. I chose a couple. Now we're at the point where we're disseminating to people how the feast of nonsense works and how the scientific method works and the tools you need to offer validity to cause and effect claims that you're going to make in this instance. Now you can choose to take that on board and utilize it to its best effect or not, but you can't twist people's arm, Neil. Now, as for me, well, I appreciate that there's going to be people around me. I have to take kind of a double negative stance on this, which is to say that I will tolerate people's opinions, but if it's presented on the show as a fact, it's got to be challenged, right? But beyond that, people are entitled to their beliefs. So when it comes to people falling out over this sort of stuff, in the same way as I don't try to hold people to task on being here, but I also won't hold it against them for not being here. Do you know what I mean? So if somebody, for instance, as we're talking about it, falls out, two people on the panel fall out, and they ask me to take sides, I have to say, no, You know, if it's about flat Earth, then we'll debate it. If it's on the show and on topic, then we'll discuss it. But beyond that, I'm not going to take sides. There's no, as far as the show is concerned, again, any obligation for anybody to be here, and that it's not going to get held against them if they don't. So if two people on the panel end up in a disagreement over something, then that's just, I can't intervene beyond it being a show subject that relates to flat Earth and me taking it apart on that basis. Do you know what I mean? So I try and detach myself
No.
when those things happen, because I know that the people around me are conspiratorial. They've got to be careful.
Yeah, I understand. I agree with you 100%. But when it gets to the point where let's just put it into the box of Christianity, when it comes into the point where Christians are going to be at each other's throats about it, then look, I'm going to try to get a conversation. If they want to have a conversation, if you want to have that belief, that's on you. But I don't understand. Here's my thing. If you think Satan has the power to go in and change God's word, then what are we talking about here? And if you're going to say that, well, this person is idolizing the word above Jesus, well, excuse me, you can't separate them two. The word became flesh. Jesus is the word. So you're going to tell me this same Jesus who you glorify and you give your life to and you've trusted, you're going to tell me that he can't keep his own word? So this is my problem with that.
Fair enough.
Does this have to do with flat Earth, or is this something else?
Yes, it does have to do with flat Earth, because by my descriptions of people's path to flat Earth, they come via these subjects. Alternatively, they get here via a similar subject and then find that, in this case Mandela, subject after they've got to flat Earth. So it's bundled in with quote-unquote conspiracy theory, isn't it? We know that. Well, it's packaged up in that way for a reason. And then it ends up with a lot of people who are typically, I don't want to say typically level-headed if they've come here via conspiracy. There are exceptions. But that means that you're dealing with people who want the feast of nonsense. They want the fantasy. They've had it sold to them, packaged up for flat Earth, with wrong information that still sold them on the idea. And then they get another topic that's packaged up in a similar vein, and they'll buy that too. So that's what we're dealing with. That's why I don't really
He got
have that
flatsoid.
much. That's why I don't.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say that's why I don't have really that much. I don't know if empathy is the right word, but sympathy for my own community in that regard, and often we'll decry our own community in that regard, and that's why, because our own community is a group of people that if I hadn't have come along the path of flat Earth to find myself surrounded by people talking about 9/11 and baby hoaxes, you know what I'm talking about? News media hoaxes.
Yes.
All that stuff I've got no interest in. Now, don't get me wrong, people like to highlight media fakery. I'll divorce myself from it like I've divorced myself from NASA, but I appreciate that people get here by that means. So, what do?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You want to talk to me about Mandela? I want to see proof. Validate it, or I don't want to hear about it no more.
So don't talk
The
about it
very
anymore.
concept of
You know, sometimes it's like when you're talking to your spouse and you've got your mind on other things and you don't want to be rude or upset them. You kind of nod along and yes, whatever. You know what I mean?
You can't do
Well,
that
yeah.
in this situation. Hold on. I'm going to let you speak in 1 second, John. You can't do that in this situation. It's because there's people that, you become close to. I never met them, but we became close through the internet and through being on these shows. So,
Nathan,
like,
roboting
it's
or
personal now.
is it something on my end?
It's your end, Mighty.
Well, wait, John's been waiting to talk.
Let me just check that
Refracted.
is the case. Is anybody else other than Mush having any issues in Discord with the signal? I think it's just you, Mush. Sorry. Find a better Wi-Fi spot.
what I was going to say is the very description of the Mandela effect means that it cannot be proven. It denies the existence of proof as a supposition. You know, like you're not going to prove that the past is changing. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Sorry.
Now, don't get me wrong. There was some things like I got caught up in it because as a kid, I always remember it was mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fondest one of all, or whatever that is. Then you hear it's magic mirror on the wall. So, you know, they get you with things like that. Now, I know in Star Wars, he said, no, I am your father. But I have certain people that say, Brian and Chocolate, that they remember hearing, no, Luke, I am your father. So, what do you say to that?
You just said it. You remember.
It's very simple. It's a mimetic. It focuses on ambiguity within your memory, and it's expressed to you as fact before it is challenged. You see, don't play the clip and then say, "That's not what he said." They give you the information, and then they give you supposed false information, which denies what they just stated.
Yep, they did the same in the 70s and 60s, I'm going to say, with backmasking, right? So if you're not backmasking, it's where you allege that what you can hear when played in reverse is a secret encoded message that they've intentionally gone to the effort of figuring out so they can reverse the record so you can hear your secret message. Well, I once saw a demonstration of this by a group of audiophiles, very well-educated audiophiles they were too, at this convention. And Poppy Crumb was the name of the woman who gave the demonstration. And what she did was she played, I think it was Stairway to Heaven, backwards. She just played it. She said, everyone familiar with this song? She said, yeah. Then she played it backwards. And she didn't specifically say which particular part of the music she was going to play. She just played a section of it. And she asked the audience, what did you hear? And they all went, nothing. It was a load of old nonsense. It was just backwards. You couldn't hear anything. She's like, you sure? And they were all like, yeah. So she plays it again. Just plays it, just the audio. Nothing, no reaction. No one can distinguish any words. It's gobbledygook. Then she plays it with words, subtitles underneath the backwards played record with I worship Satan, all hail Satan, and things of that nature in subtitles directly underneath the gobbledygook. And suddenly everyone can hear it then. Oh yeah, I do hear him saying that. Right? So you sell them the idea by telling them what's occurred previously. Well, do you all remember how it was Bernstein Bears or whatever the other crap argument they come up with? And they tell you how it's misremembered in advance of telling you how it's actually true to be documented and shown easily if you research it. So you tell people what the misremembering is as a primer for the story to sell you on the effect. It's cheap. It's a cheap trick.
And then why ain't any? Okay, it's a cheap trick. Why are certain people not saying it? And why would such a cheap trick bring you to the point where you separate from somebody that you are really holding in a,
Let me answer
high
you.
position?
Yeah,
Like
okay. Let me answer you.
Paul's knowledge is great of the Bible.
I got your question. Let me answer it. Yeah, because people don't like to be made to feel dumb. People don't like to be made to feel like they've been duped, had one over on. Any of those feelings are detestable to most people. It is easier to lie to someone than to convince them they have been lied to.
That's pride messing with you, Neil, when you sit there and say that I couldn't be wrong. It has to be this.
You already told us what, was it Michael Kahn said? I've already told my family. What's that? You're going to look like a right Burke if it's wrong then? That's all it is. It's that simple.
Well, look, it's got to come. It's just terrible how this whole thing unfolded, and I feel like I got to try to be the peacemaker here. So I'm not on. Listen, I want there to be a discussion. Now, if Paula comes on and in chat, see, that's another thing too. You could be in chat talking, and people take things differently when they read them. You know, it's happened to me. Like I read somebody's thing, and I thought they were being nasty, and they weren't. It's different when you're reading something in chat than when you're discussing it. So I don't know. But Flatzoid's all over this Mandela too. He's making hit pieces on Paula. Paula's making a video about how Mandela is nonsense. Michael's making videos and showing how the Dark Tower, the guy even says, and the lion shall lay down with the lamb. The Dark Tower is not scripture. It's crazy stuff.
Can you see the video I just posted in the main chat? There's
No,
this.
just tell us.
Okay, this is a football chant, and there are many meanings behind it. And it's like, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. And then there you have all these sentences under it that are like, lactates in pharmacy, lactates in pharmacy. And you start hearing exactly what the lines are. It's a 15-second video describing exactly what you mentioned earlier, Nathan, regarding Led Zeppelin. Of the hear what
Yeah,
you
it was
want
the same thing with the Beatles too. Sorry, John.
Memory is a funny thing. And if you do not have the humility to accept that you could be wrong about how you remembered something, that's going to be a problem for you.
It is unfalsifiable. So if you're going to class it as an effect, and then you say, well, what's the effect? And you say, well, this has changed. And you say, okay, well, then for that to be an effect, I need to see it occurring, changing. So if you've got no evidence to show that it's changed, because every bit of evidence you present shows it the same as everybody, as it, you know, you've only got one way of showing it documented, then there is no evidence of a change. So they're inventing a false narrative that doesn't exist to claim that you've remembered it that way. Now, if they're right, because you happen to have remembered it the way they prime you to remember it, because who's thinking about what was said in some 1980s space flick in one specific scene? Yeah, you're not. So they pick really stupid stuff that's totally inconsequential to anybody. A leg in a character's costume, a line of dialogue in a Hollywood movie, the name of characters on a cartoon. Ugh. None of these things are of any significance to anybody ever. Makes no difference. But what, suddenly we've got to die on some stupid hill for it? Why? We've been spending a
Is there any
significant amount of time
example?
learning how to validate cause and effect relationships. So they come up with a cause and effect relationship that simply cannot be validated and cannot be demonstrated to even be an effect in the first place. Just misremembering stuff. That's not an effect. It's just silly.
No, misremembering stuff is most definitely a fact. It's well documented in psychology fields.
Yep.
It's called confabulation. You're introduced with an idea. You have a memory that's accurate to the events. You then think about that memory simultaneously with the new information, and that creates neuron pathways, right? That later, when you recollect the event, with each copied iteration, it becomes harder and harder to tell the present information with the past information. They start to blur together, and then you remember. So you access those old synapses and recordings in your mind, and then to you, they're experienced as if they're an actual memory, no different than your other memories. And that's why you say these are absolutely true. So you have a complete misremembering of the situation, but you're not remembering the situation. You're remembering something you thought about many, many moments later than that situation. So in reality, it is in effect a memory, but it's not a memory that's accurate to reality.
Perfect. An excellent
No.
an excellent description. I've experienced it myself. You give a report about something in terms of how it occurred. You then come back to it, someone asking you the same questions months later. You give the same account as far as you are concerned, and when you cross-reference the two, they vary. You go, well, how is that possible? I've given the account in both instances. They are to my best recollection, which is why people paraphrase things like that. It's why police want an immediate statement from the person. They want to talk to you as quickly as possible about what happened, because that's the best time to do it. Otherwise, like you describe, you've formed neural pathways after you've processed the information, and then you've reassessed that neural pathway, an assessment of what actually happened rather than what actually happened, and then you imprint a copy of your thoughts on the impression of what happened rather than the event and how it happened. And as that gets more and more diluted, it's like you say, like a photocopy, gets more and more vague as time goes on. That's how memory is. Eventually, there's going to be a flaw in that process. Well, like you say, it's well documented. Psychologists know about this effect, if you want to call it one. But it is the effect of poor memory. Now, that isn't to say that in our lifetimes we don't literally experience narrative changes and things being memory holed. You know, things advance in terms of what their claims are about specific things. So you could call it the greenhouse effect, you could call it global warming, you could call it climate change, all with different things describing what they want to achieve with that particular discussion point. But if I was to tell you that, well, there is no such thing as the greenhouse effect, you go, well, no, it's merged into something else. But 100 years from now, there's a good chance that the ideas that weren't quite up to snuff will be entirely memory holed. And you'll only find them in very old books. That's where 10th Man's digging out the references to space being beyond the horizon, because they've been memory holed. Yeah? So when you say, well, things have changed, something's changed in our memories, no, someone has changed something in our narrative history because it benefits their ends. Now that becomes increasingly easy as we have a digital age of information where memory holding stuff is really easy. But with books, you can just go back to the old narrative and see, look, here's how they used to describe outer space. It's the area beyond the horizon where they're finding the new worlds. And then it changes. Now outer space is the sky. Well, does that mean there's a Mandela effect? No, it's standard media practice.
Well, it's true what you say about the movies too, because they pick and choose these insignificant things. But the whole Luke scene wasn't insignificant. But show me the Godfather where Sonny's not killed at the toll booth, and then you'll be onto something. If that changes, then I'll listen to you.
You say it's significant. It's significant within the context of a movie that moved people significantly. But it's a movie. Do you think whether or not someone's line of dialogue changes in a movie is consequential to anything ever? No.
So what about if they get? I would like to get a hold of the script, and if in that script it says no, I am your father, then nobody's got a leg to stand on, not even C-3PO and his silver one.
A leg to stand on, because if they did have a point in this that there was a script change, then you just have a justifiable reason for why, or if there was two different takes where they said something different, then okay, then you've got a justifiable reason for why something has actually changed. Now, in case of media practices, they do actually change, and quite often it's really overt. They'll tell you that they're changing something in the narrative, explicitly state it, and everyone just goes, oh, okay then. They described that in 1984 too, being at war with Oceania. And then suddenly the next day they're not at war with Oceania. The former foes are now their friends.
This illustrates a fundamental philosophy about someone's way in which they view reality, whether they think it's concrete, time flows in one direction, the concrete existence that is beyond my mind exists free from my mind. So, like Neil would say, oh, this is proof or this is not proof. Well, I could just formulate an idea where the aggregate consciousness, right, is in flux, and reality is always a rendering of that aggregate consciousness, right? And so any evidence you show me of a material thing only exists in the present. You can't show me evidence of it existing in the past. You can only show me the present moment. So I could dismiss all of your evidence and just claim my philosophy that everything's in aggregate consciousness that's constantly in flux. And the reality that we see and perceive and intuitively think is concrete is not concrete at all.
Brain in a
Yes, it's a way to
jar.
deny reality.
It's a brain in a jar.
No,
Yes,
not
it's a way.
a brain in a jar. A brain in a jar isn't even close to that level. There is no jar. There are no jars.
It's a denial of the physical reality we experience, so it's fallacious.
Well, I mean, you could say that all you
John,
want,
you
but then
came in.
you have to use. The problem is you have to use the term experience, which is subjective to the mind, right? So my proposition that I just laid out would still fit that. You can't disprove it. You can only intuitively assert it. This is why they're two competing philosophies, right? About the nature of reality. Yeah, you show me an experience without a mind. That you have to show me an experience without a mind to validate your supposition. You can't do that. You can hem and haw all day and say, oh, physical reality is obviously physical. It has limitations. When I stub my toe, it hurts. You can do that all day long. But the only way you can express that as an experience of a mind is just that, as experience.
Okay. So now it's my burden to prove their positive position. No, not interested. Sorry.
Well, that's fine. But if you say that physical reality exists apart from minds, it'd be hard pressed to prove that without the presence of a mind in the first instance.
Especially when quantum mechanics is
Irrelevant.
directly proving that you need knowledge, and that can't take place without an existence of a knower or a mind, as you're putting it. But,
Yes.
so quantum
No, that
mechanics stands in direct
information
contradiction
is
to
wrong.
Mandela effect, as far as I'm concerned.
No, the quantum effect requires information, which requires symbols to express that information, right? You can't have information without a medium, a physical reality. So explain that without physical reality.
Dude, semiotic interpretations require conveyance between minds. They don't require physical anything.
Okay, go ahead and tell me something without using a medium of transference.
Oh, tell you something?
Yeah, you're
Okay, I will.
So we're
I
done here.
will. Yeah, absolutely. I will do that once you prove to me that you possess a mind.
The very fact that you asked the question proves it.
Good luck.
This is
Good luck.
such a waste of time now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a waste of time because you're stuck in your physical assumption bias. Dude, I want to submit to you, and that you can hum and haw you want. You have no way to prove to me that you're a mind. You can only appeal to my intuition.
No, the fact that you asked the question presumes that I have a mind to answer it. You keep
No, it
using
doesn't.
my position to try to validate your own. Stop it.
Dude, you're a scripted AI, right? Just an automaton, no soul. That's programmed to react to my responses. I have not yet ascertained whether you possess a mind or not.
Right. So the
go ahead and
medium
give
of
me a
transference
rhetorical
would be.
intuition.
Hold on, AI.
Hold on. So the medium of transference would be the the bits on the computer, the megabits, right? So within that medium of transference is where I exist. So I do exist within a medium of transference. Your position is falsified.
Well, I mean, that's a claim, sure.
John, your mic is horrible.
both. It's Battle of the Terrible Mics, but that's fine. We heard most of it.
All right, information cannot be transferred without a medium. That's just how it is.
So you're saying then that in order for information, there must be an eternal medium, right? That is something other
there must
than a
be someone to
mind.
give the information. So you're painting this into a false dichotomy. I'm saying
No, I'm not.
that there
I'm just going down the metaphysical attachment.
There must be. Don't let me finish then. Go ahead.
You said no, I'm not. At the
I'm
point,
biased.
he said you're painting him into a false dichotomy, and you interrupted to say no, I'm not. It's metaphysical. What?
Right. It's either metaphysical or it's physical. Right. It can't be both. Right in the middle of me talking, dude. Why do you gotta interrupt me every time I speak? What is your problem?
Bad connections.
Go cry.
It's not. You've both got
There
bad
was clearly a
connections.
bad connection. Nathan then addressed me, so I answered to him.
Yeah, because you interrupted him.
Fair.
Anyway, I'm going to start a live show.
Yeah. In the middle of me talking.
You guys, hold on a second.
Dude.
You guys got issues with.
Okay. Jolly good.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, Mush. Good morning, Pong. Morning, John. Morning, AI. Now, in the pre-show, we were discussing the rather controversial issue of Mandela effect. I entirely blame Flatsoid for this, as he, for some unknown reason, decided to bring it back up in one of his recent streams. And since then, there's been lots of dissension, is that the right word, in the ranks, with people falling out left and right over what is essentially unfalsifiable nonsense as far as I am concerned. And it only relates to Flat Earth in the respect that it is on one of these cobbled paths that you may either reach Flat Earth via or decide to go down the rabbit hole after you've discovered that the Earth is flat, be it by decent means that you'd find here on Flat Earth Debate, or Feast of Nonsense means, which intrigued you and fascinated you and got you all excited. In any event, it's a subject that's closely related to the quote-unquote conspiracy theory that we are part of. And in reality, we're not. We're not part of any conspiracy theory. That's where we've come to in 2024. We can show our Earth's measured flat. Now, in some ways, that's quite boring. For a lot of the people who are surrounding us, they don't want that. They don't. I've come to that conclusion pretty quickly too. Within a month or two of this year, it's immediately obvious that people don't want that. Why? I think the people at large in the Western world civilization that we find ourselves in would want that. Absolutely, without question. But the conspiratorial nature of the people that have found themselves in this subject don't want that. They want fantasy. And Mandela effect represents that, so that's what we've been discussing in the pre-show. Ergo, we will take the advice of some people who detract from housekeeping questions and how it will take people off track. I've done a pretty good summary for what we were discussing to keep the discussion going. Hopefully that'll be the case. Otherwise, we should have done housekeeping. Anyway, where are we going to tail into this?
Can we show the Mandela effect, not the Mandela in and of itself?
You want me to summarize the Mandela effect argument? I can do that if you want.
If the past is changing, then maybe the Mandela effect only existed today.
Yeah, you turned it into an infinite regress quite eloquently there. So what you're saying is, if the Mandela effect is the idea and notion that things in the past have changed in our present, then perhaps the Mandela effect, the notion that things in the past have changed in the present, is an effect that has changed in the present, turning it into an infinite regress fallacy. That's beautiful. Oh, we certainly didn't achieve that in the pre-show. That's brought a smile to my face. Unfalsifiable.
Yeah, it's.
Go on, John.
But, you know, it presupposes you to necessitate that a physical reality does exist and said physical reality is changing. When you start denying that, you start running into fallacious logic real quick. That's why one of the precepts is that there is a natural world we experience together. So yeah, you're not going to get that.
If you're a
Right.
regular,
So
go ahead, AI.
right. So you have a set of information, right, that dictates what we commonly can experience. Right? You could call it the programming. You could call it reality. You could call it physical reality. You could name it whatever you want. But it's a set of information, right, that informs the mind to have an internal experience, right? So you could just make any kind of metaphysical claims you want about that external reality that's separate from the mind, right? In fact, it's been done before many times. The founder of Berkeley College, one of the most famous ones, he refers to this programming as the overmind, because he recognized very quickly that you need minds for reality to exist, but we are not the apex mind. So he, put that off one step because we need that communal reality to interact with, if indeed we are separate sentient minds.